जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग गंधर्विका गिरिधारी श्री श्री राधा विनोद बिहारी श्री श्री राधा दामोदर जी की जय। जम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमान भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील गुरुदेव की जय। नित्रिला प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमान भक्ति वेदांत त्रिविक्रम गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्रिला प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमान भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्रिला प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमान भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। आचार्य केशरी परम गुरुदेव नित्रिला प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमान भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। जगत गुरु नित्रिला प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमान भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। महाभागवत श्रील गौर किशोरदास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। सप्तम गोस्वामी सचिदानंद श्रील भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्रील जगन्नाथ दास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। श्री गौड़ी वेदांताचार्य श्रील बलदेव विद्याभूषण प्रभु की जय। श्री गौड़ी रसाचार्य श्री विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर की जय। श्रील नरोत्तम श्रीनिवास श्यामानंद प्रभु त्रय की जय। श्री कृष्णदास कविराज गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। व्यास भिन्न श्रील वृंदावन दास ठाकुर की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ सर गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। श्री लोकनाथ दास गोस्वामी की जय। श्री भूगर्भ गोस्वामी की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर गोस्वामी राय रामानंद सिकी मैती माधवी देवी गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री अंतरद्वीप मायापुर श्रीमंत द्वीप गोद्रम द्वीप मध्य द्वीप कोल द्वीप ऋतु द्वीप जन द्वीप मोद्र द्वीप रुद्राद्वीपात्मक श्री नवद्वीप धाम की जय। One day I will learn all the forests from Maharaj. Shri Vraja-mandala Dham ki jai. Sarvabhishta Pradata Shri Giriraj Govardhan Maharaj ki jai. Sarvabhishta Pradaini Shri Girirani Maharani ki jai. Shri Lalita Vishakha Adi Sakhi Brind ki jai. Shri Ananga Manjari ki jai. Shri Rupa Manjari Rati Manjari Vinoda Manjari Kamala Manjari Naina Manjari Ramana Manjari ki jai. जय श्री कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदायिनी वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड यमुना गंगा तुलसी भक्ति देवी की जय। कुल देवी भगवती पौर्णमासी देवी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा सुदर्शन चक्र जी की जय। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथ पुरी धाम की जय। भक्ति विघ्न विनाशनकारी श्री नरसिंह भगवान की जय। भक्त प्रवर श्री प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। चारों धाम चारों आचार्य चारी संप्रदाय की जय। आकर राज श्री चैतन्य मठ की जय। श्री केशव जी गौड़िया मत की जय। श्री रूप सनातन गौड़िया मत की जय। श्री गोपीनाथ भवन की जय। श्री गिरधारी गौड़िया मत की जय। श्री श्री केशव जी गौड़िया मत कुलदीप धाम एवं श्री गुरुदेव समाधि मंदिर की जय। जय श्री दामोदर गौड़िया मत की जय। श्री रमन बिहारी गौड़िया मत की जय। श्री राधा माधव गौरवाणी गंगा माता और श्रीवास संगम की जय। अन्य अन्य शाखा मत समूह की जय। कलयुग पावन त्रिभुवन मंगलकारी गोलोकेर प्रेम धन हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। जुगल नाम हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। मृदंग करताल की जय। जय श्रील राधा गोविंद महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति कमल गोविंद महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति स्वरूप दामोदर महाराज की जय। श्री गौर गोविंद गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति विज्ञान भारती गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति वल्लभ तीर्थ गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति कुमुद संत गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति वैभव पुरी गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति जीवन जनार्दन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति दयित माधव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति रक्षक श्रीधर गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति श्री रूप सिद्धांति गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। श्री भक्ति प्रमोद पुरी गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। स्वपरिकर जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। वृंदावन वासी भक्त वृंद की जय। नीलाचल वासी भक्त वृंद की जय। नवदीप धाम वासी भक्त वृंद की जय। गौरदेश वासी भक्त वृंद की जय। जे देशे वैशे गौरांगिर गण की जय। होया छे न होइबे न प्रभुर जतदास की जय। श्रीपाद भक्ति वेदांत नेमी महाराज की जय। श्रीपाद भक्ति वेदांत त्रिदंडी महाराज की जय। श्रीपाद जीव पावन प्रभु की जय। श्रीपाद प्रकाशात्मा प्रभु की जय। and all the other Prabhus and Didis and Yashodanandan Prabhu ki jai. All devotees watching on Zoom, YouTube and Facebook ki jai, past, present and future ki jai. आनंद कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, समागत भक्त वृंद की जय, श्री कार्तिक व्रत की जय, व्रत पालनकारी भक्त वृंद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल। Tarun Prabhu will be putting up the words for Dekhite Dekhite, which is on page 114. When, before my very sight, will my bodily self-conception disappear? Then with my own eyes I shall behold the exquisite beauty of Braja, full of eternal spiritual cognizance and bliss. At that time I shall take birth in the village of Vraja-mandala Maharaj, and my marriage will occur in Javata. My sole disposition and character will be that of a Braja Gopi. Any other mood will not remain. When shall I obtain, by the power of Radha's mercy, my perfected spiritual body, my perfected spiritual name, and my own form and dress, true initiation into the realm of Krishna Prem? When I go to draw water from the Yamuna, I shall understand the confidential mellows of the divine couple's loving affairs. Being overwhelmed with Prem, I shall sing Shri Radha's glories, just like a mad woman. I shall sing Shri Radha's glories, just like a mad woman. Dekhite, dekhite, bhulibo va kabe, nija sthula parichaya. Dekhite, dekhite, bhulibo va kabe, nija sthula परिचया नयन हेरिबो ब्रजपुर शोभा नित चिदानंदमय देखिते देखिते भूलिबो बा कबे निज स्थूल परिचया वृषभानुपुरे जन्म लोई हो जावटे विवाह बे ब्रज गोपी भाव होइबे स्वभाव आन भावना रहिबे देखिते देखिते भूलिबो बा कबे निज स्थूल परिचया निज सिद्ध देह निज सिद्ध नाम निज रूप स्ववसन राधा कृपा बले लभिबो बा कबे राधा कृपा बले लभिबो बा कबे कृष्ण प्रेम प्रकरण देखिते देखिते भूलिबो बा कबे निज स्थूल परिचय जामुना सलिला आहारने गिया बुझिब जुगल रस प्रेम मुग्ध होए पागलिनी प्राण गाइब राधार जश आमी गाइब राधार जश देखिते देखिते भूलिबो बा कबे निज स्थूल परिचय नयने हेरिबो ब्रजपुर शोभा नित चिदानंदमय नित्य चिदानंदमय जय राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jai Guru Deva, Jai Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Vinod, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Vinod, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Shah.
There you go. Tarun, would you mind if I just asked a quick question before we jumped into the program?
I would love if you asked a quick question, because someone's just sent me a message saying, is the YouTube stream working? Which seems to imply the YouTube stream is not working. So I'm going to take a look at this right now.
Good timing then. Dandavat pranams. I may be under total illusion here. Well, I am anyhow, but I always thought the Manjaris were not married. And if they're generally not married, why is Bhaktivinoda Thakur invoking the mood of a married gopi, especially when he's a Manjari? I have to unmute you. Sorry, Maharaj.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself was married at about the age of 12 years old. They all have their destined husbands. They're all engaged from a very young age, from like 6 years old. So they
even
have their
husbands.
husbands
In the spiritual world.
Yes, they have their husbands also. Yes,
oh, okay.
yes.
I've just never seen that written anywhere. Okay.
Yes. Well, they all describe their different husbands, etc., their place of abode. You know. Yes. Girls would not generally be left without their family making a connection with them at a very, very early age, just to slow down the slightest trace of any deviation that anybody may have. This was the purpose of the Vedic culture. It's like Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his own life. His wife was 7 years old, I think, and he was 9 years old or 10 years old, something like that. But of course, they didn't actually live together until later on. But when it's descriptions of the Manjaris, they also have their proposed husbands, etc. So that's also mentioned sometimes, you know, not always.
It's so weird how we think this is primitive.
Yeah,
it's so twisted.
It's the opposite way. Yeah,
because actually it's being abused. That's the problem.
Yes. Yeah, we're uncontrolled, barbarians uncontrolled. Whereas the Vedic culture, Vedic civilization is ordered in every nuance.
Unfortunately, those managing it have become degraded, and they've degraded their own systems.
Oh, so, yes. Yeah. Everything's, bucketed out now. But
so
tradition...
Tarun's back. I shall mute myself now, Tarun. Back to you.
With good news. The YouTube stream does seem to be working perfectly. Anyway. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So before beginning, I would like to offer my Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Gosvami Maharaj, to the lotus feet of my beloved Param Gurudevs, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj and Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj, to the lotus feet of our beloved Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, to the lotus feet of all our Rupanuga, Gaudiya, Guru Varg, to all Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, and all assembled today watching. Dandava Pranams. So today is another very auspicious yet slightly sad day. Sad because it's the last day of our Parikrama, where we're actually going around and visiting these certain places. Of course, we have tomorrow's session, but I don't think we're visiting anywhere specific. So the order for today is we'll first have a beautiful video, then we'll go through the pictures before we speak. Then we'll, on the map, we'll look, or maybe the map comes before the pictures, I don't know. We'll go through, Maharaj can correct me, we'll go through
map first.
Okay, so we'll go through the route on the map. Then we'll hand over to Pujapad Nemi Maharaj for 30 to 40 minutes to talk on Javata. Then we'll be back to Pujapad Tridandi Maharaj to speak on Kokilavana for 30 to 40 minutes also.
So after the map, we'll have the video and some photographs.
Okay, so we'll do the map first.
Yes.
Map, video, pictures.
Might as well, yes.
Okay,
just
so
to confuse people.
I love confusing people, Maharaj, don't worry.
No.
Okay, so then without further ado, I will get up the map.
Jai Shishi Guru Garanga Ganhavikatir Hari Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai All our Rupanuga Guru Vargya Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So, dear Parikrama Yatris, we are definitely winding down, and it's interesting just to perceive the location within the Vraja-mandala. If you draw your finger around the whole of the mandal, where we were yesterday is almost plumb center, a little bit off, I guess, Varshana. And we're going today to Javata, which is very close by. It's just after Nandagan, Varshana yesterday, and then yes, Javata today. So if you see where we are in the whole of the map, all these places are very bunched up together. There's Varshana, Nandagan, Javata, and there's also Kamyavan just behind there. So this was the residence, basically, of all the Brijbasis when they shifted from Gokul, which of course is on the other extreme southern eastern side of the Jamuna. So you can see this understanding of the name of Braj means to move around, as I described once before. So we see how they've traveled. And that's a beautiful pastime to describe the description actually of their travel. I just touched on it one time, but that's also described in Ananda Vrindavan Champu. I have an amendment to make yesterday. I didn't mean to give out any false, fake news or anything like that, but I mentioned that there were 28 forests. There's not. There's 48 forests, and there's 12 principal forests. And the Varaha Purana mentions 12 upavans, and the Vaivasya Purana mentions 12 prativans. So that's up to 36 so far. And finally, the Vishnu Purana describes the following 12 adivans. So we have the principal forests, and then we have the upavans, and then we have the what was that called? Oh, they don't give that one name. Oh, Prativans, sorry, Prativans. And then there are Adivans, 12 Adivans. So altogether that makes 48 forests. So 48 forests. That means that sometimes, I mean, the 12 principal forests cover the whole, most of the Vraja-mandala, but there are very small selective sections. It's like today, we're going to Kokilavana, which is a comparatively small little cluster, like a small forest, so to speak. And right next to Kokilavana is Khadiravana. We'll also be touching on Khadiravana too, because it's in the same vicinity. So this map is just to familiarize everyone with where we're going today, the most intimate sacred place. Yes, we're traveling from Govardhan up the same route as we went to Nandagaon and Varshana, and we'd go through Nandagaon, and then we take a right on the way to Koshi, and we stop at Javata. And it's a very dusty journey into Javata, as some of you will. No, you went wrong actually. Sorry. You go past Nandagaon, you took your cursor wrong. Go to Nandagaon again. Can you backtrack? Yes. Now you take that road, the main road. Yes. You went off in the bush somewhere. And then you reach Javata. Okay, there. And then we're going to go straight across the road to your left. There's a little dot across to Kokilavana. You can, yes, you've got it. Right, we're going to go there. That's our route for today. And we're going to describe quite a number of the places just around here. You have, it's not on here, but there's quite a few places just around here that we're going to touch on today. And I'll describe them when I talk about Kokilavana. So Vraja-mandala ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Video time. Maharaj.
Yes, video. Another beautiful video by Janardhan Prabhu.
Rupam tasya gajavuri purim gostavatim Radha kundam girivamaho radhika madhavasam prapto jasya prathita kripaya sangurum satosmi Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Sadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Sadabhaktaya Namo Tavaivasmi Nadivami Tvayapina Iti Vidyaya Radhe Annamam Charanantike Yata Kinkaresu Bausa Khaluka Kubani Nityam Parasya Purusasya Sikhandamode Jasya Kadara Sanidhe Vishbhanujaya Tatake Vikunja Bhavanam Ganamarijani আমরা যে স্থানেতে এসেছি সেই স্থান অত্যন্ত গোপনীয় এমনকি কৃষ্ণেরও সাধনায় আরাধনার এটা জায়গা মহাপ্রভুর একান্ত অনুগত ছাড়া এই স্থানের মহিমা অন্য কোন সম্প্রদায়ের নিকটে উনি পরিচিত নয় বল্লভাচার্য সম্প্রদায় নিম্বার্ক সম্প্রদায় রামানুজ কথাই বাকি অন্য কোন সম্প্রদায়ের এই স্থানের মহিমা বিশেষ নাই অত্যন্ত দুর্লভ মহিমা এই স্থানের নাম হচ্ছে যাবট যাবট যে বটের নিকটেতে যে বটের সুশীতল ছায়া নিকটে শ্রীমতী রাধিকা রাজভবন ছিল কি বলছে যাবক মানে যাবক থেকে যাবক এটা শ্রীমতী রাধিকার স্থান, এটা মোটামুটি বুঝতে হবে। এই জন্য শ্রীলা ভক্তি বিনোদ ঠাকুরও বলছেন যে বিশ্বভানুপুরীতে আমার কখন জন্ম হবে আর বিবাহ হবে যাবতে। আরো আমাদের সব সর্বত্রই এইটি প্রসিদ্ধি, এইখানেতে কৃষ্ণেরই ছায়া অভিমন্যু এখানে থাকে। তারই মায়ের নাম জটিলা আর তারই ভগ্নের নাম কুটিলা। এখানে শ্রীমতী রাধিকা বিবাহ হয়েছে, গোপীরাও সব এইখানেতে থাকত, ললিতা বিশাখা চিত্রা চম্পকলতা ইত্যাদি সব এই ভবনেতে विविध प्रकार श्रीमती राधिका तारा सबुली सेवा कर। সেদিনে বলেছেন যে সে ওই পাশেই সে কোকিল বন নিকটে, ওইখান থেকে কুহু কুহু শব্দ করত। এমনকি তার সমস্ত বিচিত্র লীলা এইখানে হয়েছে। যদি এই যাবত স্থান না থাকতো তাহলে পার্কীয় ভাবটাই থাকতো। পার্কীয় ভাবের এই যাবতটাই হচ্ছে স্থান।
That's Kokilavana. This is Kokilavana. That's Kokilavana also. Can't recognize that. I don't recognize that. Oh, this is Carana-pahadi.
Is this also Carana-pahadi?
Yeah. I think it looks a bit like Shani-deva. Carana-pahadi. That's Carana-pahadi, yeah.
Maharaj?
Yes. Oh, sorry. That's at Kokilavana. That's Ratna Kund, it's called, I think. Kund of jewels, it was made by milk. This is Javata. This is in the courtyard of Javata. This must be a very recent picture.
This is Kalbariksha tree.
But it's got smaller, right, Maharaj? It used to be much bigger, that tree. I think it's a recent picture then. I seem to remember that tree covering much more of the courtyard.
Maybe it's taken from an angle.
Okay.
This is also Javata.
Sorry. I'm not sure.
We've got all of these mystical, nameless places. Okay.
They are mystical places, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to hand over now to Pujapad Nemi Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Just before we start, today is the disappearance day of Kashisha Pandit, Bhakti Gosvami, and Srila Bhakti Pramoda Puri Gosvami Maharaja. So what's the schedule for that? Glorification.
Sorry, say that again, Maharaj. Sorry.
Yeah. Today is the disappearance day of Sri Kashisha Pandit, Srila Bhakti Goswami, and Srila Bhakti Pramoda Puri Gosvami Maharaja. So what's
here in India, it's celebrated tomorrow.
Okay.
So we're going, just for our Parikrama's sake, follow the Indian calendar.
All right.
No, it's wonderful to acknowledge it and in our hearts for those not in India take it in and honor them for their mercy, so that with them tomorrow we can have the full rendition, right, Maharaj?
Yes, correct. Yes, this is where the East meets the West. It sometimes gets a bit bumpy. Okay, Maharaj.
Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shlakaya Chakshuram-militam yeno Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Gaura Prestaya Bhutale Shishima Bhakti Vigyan Arati Iti Namine. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhabhyayivacha Putitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Today we're visiting amongst other places Javata. We've just seen beautiful video of Srila Gurudev at Javata. And Srila Gurudev has said that on that video, he said that Javata is the place of Parikiya Bhav. If there were no Javata, then there would be no Parikiya Bhav. So the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan, they're based on this Parikiya Bhav. So we need to understand that what is this mood? Previously, Radha and Krishna, everybody agreed that they should get married. Of course, they're both beautiful, but Srimati Radhika's princess and Krishna's prince. Vrishabhanu Baba, he's king, and Nanda Baba's king. So, but Purnamasi said, no. If they get married, there'll be catastrophe. So then, why did she do that? Because it was obvious that they would be very, it would be very auspicious if they're together. They'll be happy together. Everybody be happy because everyone likes to see happy king and queen. But Purnamasi cancelled that. So why? Because she wanted to facilitate Parikiya Bhav. Parikiya Bhav means that it appears that the gopis are married to somebody else. Actually, the gopis, we have to understand that the gopis are Krishna's internal potency. They don't belong to anybody else at all. Just like we've heard already, Radha and Krishna, Ekatmana, that they are one personality and they've separated for pastime purposes. So this Parikiya Bhav, the mood that, oh, actually I'm married to somebody else, but my heart is with Krishna and I will go through all sorts of difficulties to meet with Krishna. This increases that the purpose for which they've separated. If they separate like Krishna and Rukmini, so they're meeting every day, no problem. So what's the point of separating for pastime purposes if it's not very difficult to meet? So the meeting becomes very, very sweet. So Parikiya Bhav is that mood. When Radha and Krishna, the gopis, when they appear here in the material world, they're following the social codes. For materialists, people living in the material world, there have to be social codes to make stable society so that everyone can advance nicely, spiritually. So marriage is a very essential aspect in Vedic society, in any society. Actually, there's about 1930 something, someone did research. He was researching all the great civilizations. So he found out that the only recipe for successful culture is monogamy without divorce. So if there's polygamy without divorce, it won't go anywhere, but it won't go down. Polygamy with divorce goes down. Monogamy with divorce goes down. So the success formula is monogamy without divorce. So the Vedic society is the ideal example of that. The morals, those morals, they are for mortals. We have to follow. In the spiritual world, there's no such arrangements, but to facilitate the pastimes when they come here, so those arrangements are there. And they follow those codes. And because the inhabitants of Braj, they're like the most pious, totally most pious. So the Gopis, they're not like, yeah, well, there's those rules, let's skip them. No. They're the most pious people in the universe. So to break those rules for anybody is like, it's like death. You can't do that. It's not possible to do that, internally or externally. The family won't allow, and internally, their qualities of chastity, patience, tolerance, feminine qualities, shyness, all those things will not allow them to break those principles. And yet, to meet with Krishna, to serve Krishna as he wants, not that they're going to have a super, jazzy disco and enjoy themselves, but to meet, there's no trace of desire for personal enjoyment in the Gopis. So they're meeting Krishna only to serve him and to please him. And they go through all these difficulties more than anyone else in the universe can possibly go. And therefore their mood is worship, covered in worship by great devotees like Uddhav. So Yavat, Thakur Bhakti Pramoda is singing Unartam. Vrishabhanu Puri Janama Loibo Yavate. So I want to take birth in Vrishabhanupur, means in Barshana. Yavate Vivaha Chabe. And I want to get married in Yavat because all the Radha's there, Untitled Vishakha, all those are there. And the Manjari is also there. So Krishna, Radhika is apparently married to Abhimanyu. Srila Gurudeva, he was recounting this pastime. One time we were in Varshana, and he was recounting this pastime. That one point, one Brahmana was performing very severe austerities, and Shri Vishnu appeared to the Brahmana and said, all right, you've performed great austerities. What is the boon that you want? Because whenever you perform austerities, it's for a boon. Even when you're working in the office, there's also austerities and you want a boon, paycheck. So the Brahmana said, I want Lakshmi as my wife. And Vishnu said, what? What kind of request is that? And then he thought, So my Prabhu is arranging his pastime. He said, all right, yes, you can do it, but you'll never be able to touch her. So that Brahmana appeared as Abhimanyu. So Abhimanyu, I don't remember exactly what the relationship is, but he's some relationship with Yashoda Devi. And Krishna obviously is Yashoda's son. So he'd already arranged with Srimati Radhika. Anyway, so he came to the wedding and Krishna sat in Abhimanyu's lap during the wedding. And then somebody described how Srila Gurudev was relating this once to the brahmacharis. It must have been in Mathura, I suppose. And he was relating in Hindi and they were cracking up. So anyway, they found out Gurudev was saying that Krishna somehow arranged, he was sitting in Abhimanyu's lap and he somehow arranged that Abhimanyu became a eunuch. So when it came time for reciting the mantras, Abhimanyu couldn't say anything. So Krishna recited all the wedding mantras. And then Srimati Radhika comes with a garland to put it on Abhimanyu's neck and Krishna puts his head, And the garland goes on Krishna. And when everyone's joking, they think, oh, this is a funny joke. So Abhimanyu, actually, he never was with Srimati Radhika. He was always busy in the cowshed. So they weren't married, but he's living, so she's living in Yavat with Abhimanyu's mother, Jyotila, and Abhimanyu's sister, Kotila. And it means making complicated. They make life so difficult. They're always on the lookout. Jyotila, Kotila, they're always on the lookout to see whether she's actually being chased. Because in Vedic society, if a woman is unchaste, it degrades the whole dynasty. We can't understand these things. But the whole dynasty, because the ancestors, everybody, all become very unfortunate. So they're protected. They're like precious jewels of the family, the women folk. So it's in that establishment that they're married there, they're living there, and still Radha and Krishna meeting. So this temple in Yavat, it's such a beautiful place. It's very rural, actually. I remember the first two or three times we came, we arrived in a particular way in the coaches, and there were just so many ladies with these pots, not just one pot, but two pots on their heads. And that's like our aspiration, at some point, oh, when will I become a lady in Braj, carrying clay pots on my head and cleaning and singing Damu. So then going up the path, and then it's not a large temple. There's a beautiful courtyard there and a low overhanging, I don't know, pilu tree maybe, I'm not sure. And altar there. One time we arrived there, and they, in the year, Srila Gurudev actually supported that temple very much. One time we arrived there, and while we'd been away, they'd made a Shiv temple to attract tourists or Hindus or whatever. Srila Gurudev was furious. The next year we came, that Shivji temple was gone. And then we can, in that temple, you can climb up onto, there's like a veranda, and you can climb up there and then climb up again onto the tower. And from that, you can see across, you can see Terkadam, which is halfway between Nandagaon and Yavat, and then Nandagaon in the distance. So it's a good walk. And every day, Mother Yashoda sends an invitation that Srimati Radhika can come and cook for Krishna. And they go on that path through Terkada to Yavat, this band we described already in connection with Nandagaon. So here, there's so many adventures that Krishna's always longing to be with Srimati Radhika. There's always obstacles. Sometimes Srimati Radhika is in Man, and sometimes it's just Jyotila and Kotila who are creating the difficulties. So one time, Srimati Radhika was in deep Man, and Krishna was so much anxious to meet with her. So Subal said, I can arrange this. And he went to Yavat, and Jyotila saw him. What are you doing here? You're a friend of that Krishna. Go away. We don't want you here. Now, the confidential fact is that Subal looks exactly like Srimati Radhika, with one obvious or two obvious differences. So he pleaded. He said, I've lost my calf. I think my calf's come here. And she said, how's that possible? No, really. Do you mind if I look? All right. So he went into the cowshed and then up to Srimati Radhika's room. And then he's describing Krishna's plight to Srimati Radhika. Her heart melts. And then she said, but how can I go to see Krishna? And then Subal says, so we change clothes. And so Subal dresses up as Srimati Radhika, and Radhika dresses up as Subal. And so she's going out, and then this is thought ahead of time. In order to conceal her breast, she's carrying the calf. And Jyotila says, as she goes past Jyotila, she says in Subal's voice, Radha says in Subal's voice, "It's okay, Maya, I found the calf." And then goes on, and Jyotila doesn't think anything. And then Subal is acting as Srimati Radhika. Subal in Radhika's dress comes to see Krishna, and he's pretending, and Radhika in Subal's dress is coming to see Krishna, and she pretends to be Subal. And then she says, "Oh," in Subal's voice, she said, "Oh, I couldn't bring Radha out. She can't come. She won't come." And Krishna, and he's almost on the point of death. And then Radhika relents, and she puts down the calf, and they have beautiful pastimes. So these pastimes with Subal and Radha Krishna, they're very, very close. On one occasion, Subal dressed up as Srimati Radhika and approached Krishna, and Krishna thought it was Srimati Radhika and began to respond like that. So Srimati Radhika, at that time, Srimati Radhika was watching, and she felt within her Madhurya love for Krishna, she felt some Sakya mood also, friendship, because she's seeing Subal, she knows it's Subal, and she's feeling some mood like intimate friend, cowherd friend toward Krishna. And at the same time, Subal, he began to feel some Madhurya mood. So there are so many pastimes. On one occasion, Srimati Radhika, she was supposed to go to cook for Krishna. But Jyotila was being extremely strict. And she wouldn't allow Krishna to go. Did I tell the story about the snake? I can't remember. No? Okay. So Srimati Radhika, she pretended that she'd been bitten by a snake, and all the gopis come running to Jyotila. "Oh, Radha's being bitten by a snake. She's dying." Actually, she's bitten by the snake of separation. So, and then Jyotila's in great alarm. I mean, she loves Radha, but also without Radha, the fortune of the family is finished. She's very materialistic. So what to do? And then somebody comes with a young Brahmin girl, blackish bluish Brahmin girl, who's expert at mantras, snake mantras. So in India, they use mantras to cure snake bite. And our Gurudev related how his mother once, she was bitten by a snake. And they carried her body ran through the jungle with her body on a stretcher. And there was one, I think maybe a relative, brahmachari, lived. So he was beating the ground with bamboo, and he recited these mantras. And then she came back to life. So this Brahmin girl, young Brahmani, she's reciting mantras. So he said, I will have to massage her body. So Jyotila herself, they undress Srimati Radhika, and this Brahmani girl is massaging Srimati Radhika and gives full massage. And Jyotila and Kotila, they're looking on. So all females. And then the Brahmin girl says, one kind of medicine, I will have to give her the remnants. I'm chewing betel, so I'll have to give her that tambul. I'll have to give those remnants in her mouth, and puts it in. So these exchanges are going right on under the nose of Jyotila Kotila. Then the Brahmin girl says, actually, I need to call this snake. This is not an ordinary snake that's bitten her. I need to call this snake. So we'll have to be in a room together. So then they they dress Radha up, and she and the Brahmin girl, they go into the room, close the door, don't watch and don't listen. Yes, okay. So of course they're all listening. They can't watch, there's no keyholes. So Radha and Krishna happily together. And then Krishna starts in the Brahmin girl's voice. He calls out to the snake, "Oh, snake, why have you bitten this girl?" And then the snake's voice, "Yes, I've come from Shiva. So why have you bitten this girl?" "Because Jyotila has been very wicked. I will kill her whole family, but I cannot kill the son until his wife is dead. That's why I bit her first." So then the Brahmin, Krishna in the Brahmin girl's voice calls up, "What's Jyotila done?" "Oh, she's so wicked. She stopped her daughter-in-law from going to cook at Nandagaon." And then Jyoti was outside, "Oh, oh, oh." And then, so in this way, it goes on like this. And in the end, they come out of the room. The Brahmin girl and Radha come out of the room. And the Brahmin girl says, "Okay, so I've called the snake, and it's very serious, because this girl has been stopped from going to Nandgaon. This is a very, very serious offense." So Jyoti says, "Oh, she should go every day. She should go every day. No problem at all. No problem at all." So it's late at night that time. And then the Brahmin girl says, "Okay, it's time for me to go home now." And Jyoti says, No. It's so late now. You'll have to stay. You have to stay with my daughter-in-law. The two of you can stay together for the night, and then you can go in the morning. So Jyotila packs them off and into the room. This is one pastime. And then the pastime that Srila Gurudev liked to relate, when Mother Yashoda, and we did drama also, I've seen dramas of this. Mother Yashoda is busy packing all sorts of wonderful things into a box. And Krishna comes and says, "Hey, what's going on? My birthday? No, go away. Balari's birthday? No, go away." So in the end, she relents. She says, "There's one beautiful girl. I love her so much, and I just want to send her some presents." Krishna said, "Oh, what's her name?" So he finds out that she's sending beautiful presents to Radha. So then when Yashoda Devi has packed the box, locked it, so Krishna comes, he picks the lock, opens the box, takes everything out, sits in the box himself, and then Subal locks up the box again. And Mother Yashoda calls for Abhimanyu. So Abhimanyu comes, and he comes with his box. You think, "Oh, it's so heavy. It's got so many jewels in. He carries the box all the way to Yava, thinking, "Oh, my wife is going to be so opulent, and everything's going to be so nice." And then when he gets there, so they tell him that you can't go into her room. You have to leave the box outside. So he leaves the box outside, and then the Gopis come, Lalita, Vishakha, and all. They come and they carry the box in, and they're feeling, oh, it's like some amazing electricity is going on, some amazing energy is going on. So what is here? What is happening? And then they open the box, and then Krishna pops out of the box. Like, maybe that's the original Jack in the Box. I don't know. Anyway, it's Krishna in the box. So why bother with these pastimes? Just like I was talking to somebody this morning, they said, when we hear these pastimes, it's like we can, think about the pastimes and we get that mood and we can actually be there. So this is the actual desire. This is the perfection that we're after, actually. The perfection is to remember pastimes. Srila Gurudev used to emphasize this so much. We read Bhakti Rasayan, Shri Bhakti Rasayan. So Bhakti Rasayan, Srila Gurudev is commenting on the verses at the end of Shri Briha Bhagavatamrita. Sanatana Goswami has provided a garland of beautiful verses that we can meditate on. Gurudev says Rasayan means it's like a tonic. So it's a tonic for our bhakti. And when we take that tonic, gradually we become stronger. So Bhakti Rasai, he explains in the first chapter, so he says that previous acharyas, and he's including himself, I mean, he's one of our previous acharyas now. Previous acharyas, they would meditate on the verses, perhaps for half an hour, one after another. They meditate on the verses, they would absorb themselves in the moods of the verse for half an hour, and then they'd submerge, and then they would emerge, and then another verse. And in this way, he said they would not know how the night passed, like this. So then Bhakti Rasayan, he's coming up through the different moods, through the different rasas, trees and flowers, and then there's the water birds, and then there's the birds on the land, and then there's the cows, and then there's Sakyaras, and then there's parental love. And then actually he doesn't go into Braj Bhav, but we see Braj Bhav from the side, from the point of view of the Mathuvasis. Gopis. So what kind of austerity, they're saying, what kind of austerities did the Gopis perform that they could see Krishna in his real state, not here in the wrestling arena? So Srila Gurudev is schooling us to remember these pastimes. And when the senior ISKCON Wallahs came in the early 90s, and he was commenting on Vilak Kusmanjali, and again he was saying we can pray to these pastimes so they will clear in our hearts, but we will not have transformation, like bodily or mental transformation. We can pray like that. So the whole idea is to remember the pastimes. So why? Because they're nice stories? So that we can avoid reality? No. Krishna smaran janam kyasya. Sri Rupa Goswami is explaining that we remember Krishna janam kyasya, with his people, with his jana. Why? Because those personalities, they're the embodiment of the moods for which we hanker, or which we desire to hanker. Let's say at some point we will hanker for these moods. We'll hanker for the moods of the inhabitants of Braj. They're ragatmik jan. Rag, atmik, that's the very nature, atmik, and rag means intense absorption. So they're ragatmik jan. And then bhakti following them is rag anuga, following their rag, following their intense absorption, anuga following. So ultimately, when we hear these pastimes from those who are absorbed in that mood, so those moods will actually come into our heart. These pastimes here in Yavat, not so much, I mean, in that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's book, there's not so much mention of the manjaris there, but they're watching and they're serving and helping in so many ways, and they are appreciating the moods. They're loving the moods between Radha and Krishna. So Yavat's a very important place, very vital place for us. I can't finish without glorifying Srila Bhakti Pramoda Puri Gosvami to some extent, because it's his titi today. I will not say so much, but he was a very prominent disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, born in a prominent, very pious Brahmana family. The neighbor of his parents, Sri Bhakti Ratna Thakur, who was a god brother of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he schooled Sri Pramod, young boy, and he was very, very devoted from the beginning. And later on in 1915, actually, he met with Saraswati Prabhupada the day after Srila Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaja's disappearance. And then later on, he met him again, and he began to visit the mutt in Calcutta. On one occasion, I won't go into a great detail, but he became a very prominent disciple of Srila Saraswati Prabhupada. He was in charge. Prabhupada personally gave him a fountain pen. He said, now you have to do editing. So he was personally in charge of the publishing. And Srila Prabhupada, Saraswati Prabhupada used to joke with him. He'd say, sometimes his mother would write and say, oh, things are so bad here. And then Prabhupada would take the letters, he would read them. And then he would tell all the disciples, he'd say, oh, Pranavananda, what is his name? Pranavananda's mother is writing, oh, so heartbreaking letters. Even I'm feeling so heartbroken. So what will Pranavananda feel when he reads the letters? He was like joking like this. And then just 2 days before, before Saraswati Prabhupada passed away, he actually put his lotus feet on still Pranavananda Prabhu's. Saraswati Prabhupada asked him to take sannyas, and he said, I'm not worthy to do that. So he didn't take sannyas from Saraswati Prabhupada. Prabhupada put his lotus feet in his chest, and Pranavananda Brahmachari said, Prabhupada, what could we do if you're not here anymore? And he said, Pranavananda, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And then 2 days later, he passed away. So he's a very, very, very humble, very loving, extremely expert in all matters of puja. And he personally performed he installed many deities, most of the deities in the Gaudiya Math. He laid the cornerstone for my Guru Maharaj's temple, Krishna Balaram Mandir. So I'm offering my humble obeisances at Lotus Feet. He gave shelter to so many devotees, especially Russian devotees also. After the passing away, my Guru Maharaj and then Srila Siddha Maharaj. So I'm offering my humble obeisances at his Lotus Feet, begging for his mercy to advance in bhakti and service to my divine acharyas. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhya Shakti Vasanam Putidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo.
Thank you, Maharaj. It's certainly nice to hear some glorification today, and then we can hear more tomorrow as well. I think that's what we said earlier as well in the month, that we should touch on them if the appearance is in the West on one day, and then if according to the Parikrama timeline, we can speak more than the following day. So thank you very much, Maharaj.
Mercy comes on a titi, so I want mercy. Indian mercy, that's different titi, not my titi. So Chidani Maharaj can get the Indian mercy, but I want the Western mercy.
Very nice. It's nice to celebrate on 2 days as well. I like 2-day festivals. They're better than 1-day festivals. Okay, thank you very much, Maharaj, for your Haribol. So now we will go on to Kokilavana with Pujapad Chirandi Maharaj. Thank you.
Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Taralaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Om Agnati Mirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmalitam Jina Tasmaya Shri Gurave Namaha. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Srila Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarsara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarsara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Vargya, especially today in England, the celebration of the Tirobhav of Srila Pramoda Puri Gosvami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat pranams to this illustrious person, who we will celebrate more extensively tomorrow, as it's just been described. And I'm offering my Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees listening today and in the future. And Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhavevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha. So we've heard very beautiful glorification of Javata, such a sacred place to visit, particularly to absorb the conception of Parakya Ras, as Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj was just describing. Without appreciating this, then the gift of Mahaprabhu has not been absorbed by the sadhak. This is what Mahaprabhu has come to explain. He had to come and explain it himself. Pujapad Nemi Maharaj, he was explaining how this is such a sacred dharma of the marital institution that is held in the civilized world of ancient India, and to transgress that was abominable. So how could sadhaks reconcile that Krishna had broken that, had transgressed that dharma? They couldn't begin to, not even Jayadev Goswami. We were speaking the other day when he wanted to write his Smaragara Kandana, Mamasi Rasi Mantram, Dehi Pravalava Madara, that Krishna himself had to come and write this. So Mahaprabhu advanced to reconcile and to make it possible for us to have deepest faith in the dynamic of these pastimes in Braj, where Krishna is not married directly to any of the gopis, but all of the other gopis, they're all married. So in Javata, of course, is the home of Jyotila, Kotila, Abhimanyu, and these are the in-laws. And we just might reflect that also Ananga Manjari, the younger sister of Shrimati Radhika, she is married to the younger brother of Abhimanyu, Dromuda. And so Ananga Manjari is also in the same palace, because Vrishabhana Maharaj, he didn't want his darling daughter to live in anything less than a palace. So it's described that Vrishabhana Maharaj had a very beautiful palace built in Javat for Jyotila and Kotila, but principally, of course, the rooms were to give comfort to his two darling daughters. So now from Javat, we're going to go back the way we just came, in off the main road, which goes between Nandagaon and Koshi. There's a main road today. And we've just come off the main road into, as dear Nemi Maharaj was describing, an extremely rural village. It's almost like Bailvan that we went to on the other side of the Jamuna. It's just filled with buffaloes and cows and cow patties everywhere. This is the nature of the atmosphere of Javat. It's a very humble mood. There's no apparent material opulence being demonstrated there at all. Everything is very, very simple. Actually, I had some friends who took the puja on for about 5 or 6 weeks. The two pujaris there, their name is Vrindavan and Jamuna, they had to leave. One of them got sick and the other one had to go. So a German couple took over the offerings there. And they were describing very clearly how every single day, the local people would come with a little packet of dal, a little packet of rice, some milk, some spices, etc. They didn't actually hold any stock today of boga. All the boga is just brought by the locals daily to the door of this mandir where we are. So it's on like a, what do you call, the very edge of existence, so to speak. They have no material facilities at all today. So this is the height, in fact, of opulence. It's like we describe the township of Anayor. Anayor is also very similar to that, where Krishna arranged for all the offerings to be offered to Giriraj. So these are very sacred places, and it appears that to the material eye that they've just remained by the potency of the Lord in a very humble condition, which is very enlivening for the sadhaks to appreciate. We come from such materialistic backgrounds and environments. It's always such a pleasure to come into the extremely rural atmosphere. So now we're leaving that town. We're going to go across the main road, and we're going to go for about 2 kilometers on a dusty road. It's directly, practically across the road that you come out from Javata, and then we just cross over the main road, and we drive for about 2 kilometers, and we come to this most beautiful forest of Kokilavana. And it's a beautiful ashram setting physically now, which we can see. Very clean and beautiful rooms are there, and there's a wall around the ashram, and it's always very clean, and there's a very sweet atmosphere there indeed, because again, it's in a very quiet location. Kokilavana. Kokil means cuckoo, and the reason it got its name is that Sri Radhika and the Sakhis, they were in Javata, and Krishna had arranged a rendezvous near Kokilavana or in Kokilavana, but they weren't able to escape. The Sakhis and Sri Radhika, they were being watched closely by Jyotila and Kotila. Kotila was particularly, my Gurudev described, she's like an ant that's always looking for a crack. Kotila is always looking for some defect in Radhika, just to make her external life more obstacles, because when the obstacles are there, as dear Nemi Maharaj was just describing, this increases the utsaha. When the obstacles come, then we need more utsaha to actually overcome them. So Kotila is part of that ingredient. So Kotila and Jyotila, they were watching the Sakhis, and the Sakhis became very restless because they wanted to escape, but they couldn't. So Krishna's waiting and waiting in the forest. So then Krishna, he began to imitate a cuckoo bird, but not just imitate it. He imitated it in the most beautiful, loud way, such a way that startled even Jyotila. Jyotila is listening to this cuckoo, and she turns and says to Vishakha, Vishakha, I've never heard a cuckoo sing so beautifully and so loudly. This is remarkable. We live hearing cuckoos often, but never one as bright and as sweet and as melodious as this one. This is amazing. And all the other Sakhis, they all comment. They know it's Krishna. They can hear the sound vibration of Krishna's mood. It's coming through the cuckoo. It's remarkable because the sound vibrations have all been opened up fully by the sound of Krishna's flute. So of course, for all the Sakhis, they're in tune with everything. So when this cuckoo was singing so beautifully, but so loudly, he had to sing loudly so that Kotila and Jyotila would hear. And then Jyotila, she's listening, mesmerized to the sweetness of melodiousness of this flute, of this cuckoo song. And Vishakha says, oh, I've never heard a cuckoo sing so beautifully. Perhaps we should go to the forest and look for this cuckoo bird and see what its nature is. And Jyotila says, yes, you should go. All of you go together as a group. You all go now, and you see if you can locate that cuckoo, and you come back and you tell me what that cuckoo bird looks like. So all the Sakhis, of course, they're very happy and joyous. They're already prepared to go to the forest. So they immediately exit Javata, and they come to this beautiful place. And of course, Krishna's there. And they engage at that time in Ras Lila, it's described, in Kokilavana. This is Kokilavana, and this is probably 2 kilometers from Javata itself. So this is how Kokilavana got its original name, from the sound, beautiful sound of Krishna imitating a cuckoo bird. But also in this beautiful forest, it borders on Khadiravana. Khadiravana is a part almost of Kokilavana. And in my Gurudev's Vraja-mandala Parikrama book, many of the locations are in Khadiravana as well as Kokilavana that he describes in the same chapter. So here, directly at this wonderful ashram we've just come to, we just see at the back of the ashram, there's a huge, beautiful Kund, and it's called Ratna Sarovar, the Kund of jewels. Ratna, of course, means jewels. So it's described how once the Gopis, they wanted a Kund to manifest here, and by their own arrangement, they excavated a place for a Kund, and they brought many, many clay pots filled with milk, and they put all this milk into the Kund, and then Sri Radhika and the Sakis, they would bathe in this milk, and Krishna also would come and he would bathe in this milk. So today, when we see this particular Kund, it has a very special taste to the water. It looks even different to ordinary water. So it's the remnant of the milk that was poured into this Kund by the Gopis. So this is called Ratna Sarovar. And it's described that if one takes bath in this Kund, then all wealth and auspiciousness will come to that person who takes bath here. So many of the local people, as well as particularly the tourists actually from Delhi and from other places in India, they know about this benediction. And of course, they have some material desires and motivations. So they come here deliberately just to get some material benefit from taking bath in this particular Kund of Ratna Sarovar. So of course, we take bath in this Kund to pray for the mercy to achieve pure devotion for Sri Radha and Krishna, and to ultimately have the opportunity to manifest in their pastimes as servants of Sri Radhika. So this is called Ratna Sarovar, and it's here in this beautiful forested area of Kokilavana. And then also very close by, there's a place called Anjan-oka. Anjan-oka. Anjan means the eyeliner. So once Sri Radhika was getting dressed by the Sakis, and they had almost finished her Shringara, dressing her, and suddenly Krishna plays his flute, and Radhika's intense greed immediately just rose to a pitch, and she couldn't remain seated. And she left before the Sakis had finished her Shringara with her eyeliner on her eyes, her Anjan. So she ran to Krishna in this condition. And when she came to Krishna, Krishna was so happy to meet with her. And there was beautiful exchanges. And Krishna sat her on a nice throne, and he sat beside her. And then he's noticing that her eyeliner is not there. It's missing, her decoration. This alanka is not there. And then the Gopis, they all explained, well, you played your flute so beautifully, Radhika couldn't hold her patience. She had to run. So Krishna himself, he applies this Anjan to the eyes of Sri Radhika at this particular place. So we can come to this little village that is very close by where we are now, to this Anjan-oka, and we can take darshan. There's a place, a stone, where Radha and Krishna sat, and where Krishna himself, he applied this Anjan. And then also very close by, there's a place called Bijavari. And Bijavari is the place where Akrura, when he was taking Krishna and Balaram out of Mathura, the Gopis, they came to this place. This area that I'm just going to describe now, there's many pastimes here, and it covers an area of maybe 5 or 10 kilometers around here. And we can wander around and we can hear all these different pastimes. Just now, I was watching the video of Srila Gurudev today, describing all these pastimes. And he just described all of these pastimes, one after another, basically, in this whole area. So this pastime of Bijavari is very pathetic. It's when the gopis, they collapse out of complete mortification that this Akrura, the gopis, of course, they call him, Akrura means not cruel, Akrura. But the gopis, they call him Krura, which means cruel. So they collapse, and their bodies looked like lightning bolts, brilliant lightning bolts crashing into the earth when they collapsed, when their bodies collapsed. So the word for lightning bolts is vidyut apjana. And this vidyut apjana has become corrupted today to be called Bijavari. So from this word, Bijavari, the name of this very, very small village. So this pastime is remembered, where the gopis, their bodies became so brilliant, like shining, but then they collapsed like lightning into the ground. And then there's another beautiful place called Parsom. Parsom comes from the word in Hindi called Parso. Parso means the day after tomorrow. Right, Ram? Parso. You say Kal and then you say Parso, which means the day after tomorrow. So it became corrupted again, be called Parsom, because it's here that Krishna tried to pacify the gopis. Again, he's on his chariot. This is in very close proximity to where we just were. And Krishna is telling the gopis, he said, I promise I will return the day after tomorrow. Krishna is giving this promise. And it's for the sadhaks to remember this, because the gopis just lived for the next 100 years holding on to that promise. Srila Gurudev describes many times that the gopis, they wanted to leave their bodies in desperate separation, but they couldn't. There was a lock and bolt to keep them within their bodies. And this lock and bolt is that Krishna had promised that he will come the day after tomorrow. And the gopis were thinking, whenever he comes, if we're not here, Krishna will be so unhappy. So we must remain for his pleasure. So again, the gopis are demonstrating their utter submission to the desires of their most beloved, Priyadatma Krishna. So this mood comes through. All of these moods of the gopis constantly are surfacing through pastimes of this nature. Their enthusiastic affection and demonstration of their love for Krishna, which is totally, as we just heard from our dear Nemi Maharaj, how it breaks all dharma. Their love, it smashes the dharmic boundaries of society because it's so powerful. This pure prem, this prem consisting of the nature of Mahabhav, beyond Rag and Anurag. The queens of Dwarka is described, they come to the place of Anurag, but the gopis, they come to the stage of Bhav, because they have this mood of Samartha Rati, where they will control Krishna. So this is Parsom, a little village of Parsom. And then close by, there's a village called Shi. And there's a beautiful verse where Krishna, again, he's saying he will return soon. Mathura hoite Shri Graha, koibe gamana, e hoitu Shri Gara, sikahe saravagyan. Krishna is saying this word, Shigraha, Shigraha, Shi. So this Shi, it stuck and became the name of a village. And it means literally soon, that Krishna will return soon. So all of these pastimes are very much invoking a remembrance of the separation moods. Similarly, the meeting moods are here because there was so much Ras Lila performed all around this area. We're in this beautiful forest of Kokilavana, and Khadiravana is very close by, and there's beautiful trees and so many birds. There's so many beautiful, beautiful birds, big white herons, etc. These saraswas birds also, so many beautiful birds in this area, making a whole symphony of sound with their sweet songs. And then there's the village of Kamai. Kamai is right here, and this is the birthplace of Vishakha. Vishakha is born here. So all of this is very close to Nandagan and Varshana. So now today we're right in the very heart of Braj, talking about Javata, which immediately invokes, as we heard, the appreciation of what is Parakiya Bhav. This is such an esoteric contemplation to consider. I mean, it just breaks all normality. It could never be spoken anywhere except amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And in that video we're hearing, Srila Gurudev is saying that the Ramanujas, the Nimbaditas, etc., the Madhava follower, they don't have connection with this Parakiya Ras. They're not qualified for this. Only those Gaudiyas who have taken shelter of Sachinandan Gaurahari, and he can infuse the ability to accept this relationship between Radha and Krishna and all the Sakhis, because all the Sakhis are also married. We just heard, I was explaining to Yashoda, even the Manjaris, they have husbands. And they all break these very strict boundaries of Dharma. Understand what is the meaning of Dharma. Dharma essentially means you cannot go out of your fixed appreciation of what is correct behavior. It's like in Swagaloka, for example. Swagaloka is described as what's it called? The Dharma Yoni, where the Dharma Yoni, where Dharma is absolutely solid, even though they don't have such a close connection with Krishna in the sense of being devoted to him personally, but they have acceptance of the rules and regulations of Dharma. And this has also manifested in this land of Bharatvash, very prominently so. The people here are by nature dharmic. That's why they all follow a corrupted government, because they're too stupid to break out of it. Anyway, and then close by is another beautiful little village called Karehela. And this is Lalita's birthplace. So Lalita's birthplace and Vishakha's birthplace are very close together. Yesterday we went to the home of Lalita in Uchagan, but I said at the time, this is not her birthplace. So her birthplace is here, right next to in this Kokilavana forest. And also in this same village of Karela is Govardhan Malla and his wife Chandravali. So they also stay here in this same village. So Chandravali's father is Chandra Bhanu. Chandra Bhanu is one of the four brothers of Vrishabhanu. There's Ratna Bhanu, Subhanu, and Sri Bhanu. There's four brothers. So Chandra Bhanu is one of the brothers of Vrishabhanu. So Radha and Chandravali are just like sisters. In the nature of the Brijbasi relationships, they often overlap what we would say is absolutely correct, etc. It's like the grandmother of Krishna is called Mukara, but she's not really the grandmother. She just breastfed Mother Yashoda. A grandmother is called Patala. That's the grandmother of Mother Yashoda. But sometimes Patala was too busy, and Mukara would actually breastfeed Mother Yashoda. So Mother Yashoda honors her like a grandmother, and so does Krishna. So all these relationships are described, particularly in that Radha Ganadesh Deepika. So this is Karela, the birthplace of Lalita Devi. And now we come to Lohila or Lobila. And this means very greedy. At one time, Lalita, she was so much anxious for Krishna's meeting that she arranges very amazingly a meeting here for Radha and Krishna. And because of her arrangements, very tricky arrangements, she managed to get Krishna to come here. That Lalita is celebrated in this little village on the altar of Lalita Bihari. When we come to this village, we see an altar with Lalita Bihari is here. So Lalita is there with Krishna on the altar. So this is another village in this vicinity where we are today. And then we come to a place called Pishai. Pishai, it's another little village right here. And this is where Baladev, he fulfills the desire of Kanaya, who exclaimed that he was thirsty. He was very thirsty. So Baladev quickly ran and brought some water here to pacify his beloved Krishna, who was thirsty. So Pyasai means thirsty. Probably Ramananda can tell me the real, how to pronounce that. I'm not sure. Pashai. Pyasai. So it means thirsty. So this village became called today Pisai. And also there's a beautiful Kund here called Krishna Kund and Vishakha Kund. And there's a beautiful Kadamba Kandi. Kadamba Kandi, that means a grove of these immensely tall Kadamba trees. There are places in Braj still today. There's many places of these Kadamba Kandi where we can still visit, probably only for the next 20 or 30 years, or maybe less, they will be there. But these enormous trees, my Gurudev used to describe when he was younger doing the Parikrama, there will be so many more of these Kadamba Kandis. When we come to these places, I mean, they are like huge, huge, very, very shady trees. So it creates a wonderful, special atmosphere, particularly in the heat of summer, where much shade and cooling environment can be there. And then we come to a village called Sahara. So in this Sahara village is the home of Upananda, the oldest brother of Nanda Baba. And his son is Subhadra, and Subhadra's wife is Kundalata. And Subhadra loves Krishna more than his own life. And Subhadra will always accompany Krishna into the cow grazing fields as a protector. Subhadra likes to have a mood of taking care of Krishna. They carry small little bows with them. There's a group of Sakhas and they consider that they are Krishna's guards. So they have weapons with them, just small weapons, but still nevertheless, they make a big deal of these weapons that they have. And they guard Krishna as he goes into the forest, cow grazing. Subhadra, and of course Kundalata, she is very prominent in so many of the pastimes when Krishna is with the Gopis. And they are always joking about Kundalata having a romantic engagement with Krishna. But of course, Kundalata is directly related to Krishna. She's Krishna's, what is that relative called? Krishna's uncle is Upananda, and the uncle's son is Subhadra, and Subhadra is the wife of Kundalata, so cousin. So Kundalata is a very near, close cousin, first cousin, I guess you would say. So they're always, the gopis are always joking, because Kundalata always takes the side of Krishna. She's always supporting Krishna in all the different pastimes. And also, Kundalata has a very close connection with Jatila, just as Vishakha does. I explained to you yesterday how Vishakha's mother is the sister of Jatila. So Jatila always considers Vishakha is trustworthy because she's her relative. So Vishakha has a good handle on arranging different rendezvous for Radhika, because Jyotila has trust in whatever she says. And Kundalata is like this also. Kundalata is also very much trusted by Jyotila, so they can manipulate different situations at different times. And close by here again is another little village. Perhaps someday we can actually just walk for a day or two in this whole area. We didn't go to all of these places with my Gurudev. My Gurudev would sometimes just sit like we're sitting, and he would indicate, like if you see the video where Gurudev is speaking today from the Lavanga Didi she sent around, and Gurudev is just sitting and he's just speaking about all these places. But all these places are just very small villages in this vicinity. And if we get ourselves absorbed in the numerous pastimes that are tumbling around here, then this is, as our dear Nemi Maharaj was just indicating, this is the consciousness we want to have. We want to have, this is called Swarasiki Upasana, where many, many pastimes are coming, tumbling into the consciousness. So there's a village called Sanki. Sanki is very close to here. And there's another description where Sankachuda is actually killed. There's a description in Ratnavedi near Govardhan where that pastime was described, but it's also described as happening here, just as Sri Radhika sometimes manifests in Rabal, and she sometimes manifests at Rishabhanu Kund. So we must appreciate that these are eternal pastimes going on in every single day of Lord Brahma. So there's 365 days in Lord Brahma's year, and he lives for 100 years. So that means Krishna comes a lot, right? That's 35,000 times, right? Is that correct? 100 times 35? I think Yashoda's left us for a while, but you can do the calculation. So it's like thousands of times, thousands of days pass in the life of Lord Brahma. So the pastimes are somewhat, they have variety sometimes. Basically, the basic structure is the same, but there are differences at different points. So it's described that Sankachuda was killed here. It's also the, and this is where Baladev, he was given the jewel from Sankachuda, and Baladev, he gives that to Madhumangal. Madhumangal gives to Dhanishta. Dhanishta gives to Lalita. Lalita gives to Sri Radhika. So the Shamantaka jewel, which was taken from the Sankachuda demon, is given again to Sri Radhika. The Shamantaka jewel and the Kastuva Mani on Krishna's neck are the best of friends. They love being together. So this is again bestowed on Sri Radhika. And then we come to a place of Chatravan, Chatra, or today it's called Chatta. And this is where Sridham, he declared that he sat Krishna on a beautiful stone like a throne. And he declared very strongly, very boldly, in front of all the other Sakis, that Krishna is the king of Braj. His father is Nanda Baba. So this means Krishna can be seen as a prince, but here today, Sridham, he's proclaiming that Krishna is the king of Braj. And Sridham, he stands with an umbrella, and it's described that Arjun, he is fanning Krishna, and Subal, he's offering tambul, betel nut to Krishna, and Subahu, and Vishal, they are acting as the subjects, and Madhumangal is proclaimed the court jester. So all of this beautiful pastime is going on, and Krishna's proclaimed the king. And then Madhumangal, he very loudly proclaims in this assembly of Sakhas that the Gopis are not allowed to steal any more flowers. This kingdom belongs to the king of Braj, who is Brajendranandan Shamsundar. This is the king of Braj. And the Gopis in particular, they're not allowed to steal any flowers. So now there's another little village very close by called Umrao. And in Umrao is a very famous village. And in Umrao, all the Sakis, they heard about this proclamation of Madhu Mangal. So just as in Danirvatan Kund, they got their revenge on Krishna for blocking that Dangati Kund, and just as the same in Sankari Court, they got their revenge. Here at Umrao, they would not tolerate this proclamation that Krishna was the king of Braj. So they all gathered together in great ceremony with great pomp and, you know, decoration and so on, and Vedic mantras. And Sri Radhika was declared the queen of Braj. This was declared with great solemnness that Radhika is the queen of Braj. And anybody transgressing her order would be punished, would be bound and punished. So it's described that Chitra Saki, she held an umbrella, and Vishakha, she fans Krishna. And the minister, of course, is Lalita Devi. So they established this mood of Raj Adhika, this king, the queen of Braj, the Rani of Braj. And Sri Radhika, she proclaims, you go and defeat anyone who proposes to usurp my kingdom. Anyone who challenges my authority in my kingdom, you go and you challenge them. So at that time, all the Sakis, thousands of them, they charge towards all the Sakas. And the Sakas, they see these running, very brave, very bold Sakis under the order of Sri Radhika, and they all run for their lives. All the Sakas, they run. But the Sakis, they manage to catch Madhu Mangal, and they slap his cheeks, and they bully him. And Madhu Mangal, he's weeping and weeping. And finally, they fill his belly because Radharani, she feels, oh, Madhu Mangal is just a stupid Brahmana. And she fills his belly with ladus, and she lets him go. And then Krishna, he voluntarily comes to this place with all the Sakas in a mood of submission. And the Gopis, they accept Krishna in a humble, surrendered mood. And they sit Krishna beside Radhika on a throne. And together they declared the king, and they make a treaty. They make a treaty between them. But it's declared that the queen will have the authority. And all the Sakis are glaring at the Sakas just to let them know that their queen has prominence over Krishna. So at that time, Madhu Mangal declares that Sri Radhika, she is the queen of the body of Krishna. Krishna's body is his kingdom. And Sri Radhika is the queen of that body. She's the controller of that body. So this Umrava, this means this beautiful Leela of the king and queen of Braj manifesting. These are externally playful children. They're playful children. They're all, Radhika is no older than 14 years. Krishna is 15 and a half, almost 16. You know, this is in the oldest, but prior to that, they're younger, of course. But it's basically the beautiful play of children. So it would all be with a very exciting, loving mood to please Krishna, to create a very festive atmosphere of sweetness, where emotions would be evoked, where beautiful exchanges would be manifested. So these are the pastimes at Umrao. And in Umrao, of course, we know that this is where Lokanath Goswami performed his pastimes. Lokanath Goswami, we know, was the eldest of all the Goswamis to come. He was born in 1484, the same year as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Is it 1484 or 1486? I think it's 1484, if someone wants to prompt me. But 1484, I think. So they're both the same age, Mahaprabhu and Lokanath Goswami. And Burgaba Goswami, he's the nephew of Lokanath Goswami, whose disappearance day, it is tomorrow here in India. So we're going to mention him also tomorrow. But Lokanath Goswami was performing his bhajan here at Kishori Kund, which is right here. And Srila Gurudev briefly describes how Narottam came to this place at Umrao and cleaned the area where Lokanath Goswami was having his morning ablutions and so on, in order to get the mercy of Lokanath Goswami to become his spiritual master. And eventually, we know the pastime we heard at Gokulananda. Then Lokanath Goswami, he accepts him for a little while. And then he finds a fault with him when Narottam is not meditating in a fixed state of consciousness on his chanting. And he leaves his chanting to give water to a farmer. And when Lokanath Goswami comes out of his meditation, he's very unhappy. And he tells Narottam, oh, you left Radha and Krishna's service just to give water to a farmer who would have got water in any way. He would have got water. And you left that transcendental service to serve a material, mundane farmer? No, you're not qualified. Go. What does this signify? Actually, it signifies that Narottam must come and serve the conditioned souls, which is exactly what he does, right? Narottam, he serves the conditioned souls. He comes to Bengal, and he goes into the north, into Assam, and he preaches so extensively. We are so indebted to Narottam and to Lokanath Maharaj for rejecting him from his ashram. If Narottam had stayed with Lokanath Maharaj, how would we have got so many of the scriptures, so many of the teachings of Narottam, etc.? So because of this pastime, we have been benedicted with the fruits of the teachings and guidance of Narottam Das Thakur, which are extensive. So this is the place of Lokanath Goswami at Kishori Kund. And from this Kund, practically, we say it's directly that Radha Vinod manifested from this Kund. And the story is that we hear that a Brahmana suddenly appeared in front of Lokanath Goswami. Lokanath Goswami was performing his meditation, chanting on his mala, and he had a desire in his heart to offer shringar, to offer worship to Radha and Krishna. And suddenly a Brahmana appeared in front of him, and with the beautiful deity of Binod Bihari. So, and requested Lokanath, oh, you please feed Thakurji. And then this Brahman, he disappeared. So Lokanath Goswami was left with this deity. And so it's described sometimes that the deity appears from the Kund, because in a sense, it did appear at Kishori Kund. But it was just a deity of Krishna initially. It wasn't Radha and Krishna yet, because this whole teaching of Parikrama hadn't fully manifested immediately with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is initiating this conception of Parikrama, and it's only Rupa Goswami who captures the heart of this by the desire of Mahaprabhu to manifest it fully in the world. Without Rupa Goswami's manifesting this, like we're describing now Lokanath Goswami, he is much older than Rupa Goswami. So he would not have been influenced by the teachings of Rupa Goswami at this time. So this clarity on Parakya Bhav didn't fully manifest until Rupa Goswami gave it to us, particularly in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and the Ujjwala Nilamani, etc. So this was the gift of Rupa Goswami. But here, this Kishori Kund. And then close by is another place called Danshinga, where Dhanista Shaki was born here. So she is the Krishna Paksha Gopi, who always supports Krishna. 5 types of gopis. There's the, or 5 types of Sakis rather. Saki, Nitya Saki, Pran Saki, Priya Saki, and Priya Nam Sakis. So Dhanishta, she falls into the first category of Saki. And Dhanishta Saki is always in Nandagal, serving Mother Yashoda. And she's always in that area. She's the personality who will bring the remnants of Krishna's prasad to Sri Radhika every time. So she's very close with Krishna and she's very close with Radha simultaneously. So she's able to perform many confidential savas. Every day, Dhanishta Saki, it's described, she takes Krishna down a very secret staircase from Nandagan to a place called Gupta Kund, which is about 2 miles east of Nandagan, northeast. And Gupta Kund is just in front of, or rather behind, Vrindakund. Vrindakund is where Vrinda Devi lives, and just behind Vrinda Devi's residence to the north is Gupta Kund. And at Gupta Kund, it's the first Yog Pit of the day, it's the first meeting of the day. And all these Sakis, all the Manjaris, they would manifest in an apricot mood. And Krishna and Radha would sit on a beautiful lotus flower in Gupta Kund. Gupta means secret. They would sit there and they would all celebrate a very beautiful arti. The first meeting of the day is Gupta Kund. And the second meeting, Yog Pit, is in Radha Kund, in the midday Madhyana pastimes. And the third meeting in the Ratri Lila is Seva Kunj in Vrindavan. So these 3 Yog Pits are scattered throughout the whole of Braj, from Gupta Kund to Radha Kund to Vrindavan. These 3 principal meeting places that are celebrated every day. Every day they meet in Gupta Kund, every day they meet in Radha Kund, and every day they meet in Seva Kunj. So these are called Yog Pits. Yoga means meeting. The Yog Pit, the meeting places. So it's just helpful for us to appreciate all these different places. So there are actually many more places around here, but our time is expired. But we should appreciate that this is Kokilavana, and Khadiravana is also directly in the same vicinity. Kokilavana is not a large forest. It's not like Kamyavan is a huge forest. Vrindavan is a huge forest. Mahavan is a huge forest. Kokilavana is a comparatively smaller forest, and Khadiravana is in the same vicinity, very close by. So these forests are exceptionally beautiful and exceptionally loaded, absolutely loaded with different pastimes that are recorded today. What to speak of those realized sadhaks who walk in those grounds, even today, what will they see? I shared with you one time that there's a personality called Narayan-bhatta Goswami, and he's written contains 60,000 pastimes. And this was presented to my Gurudev, and that they mentioned, oh, this has 60,000 pastimes. And my Gurudev said, there are so many more, millions, every single footstep that Krishna takes is a pastime. Actually, yesterday when we went to Uchagan, I forgot to tell you in Uchagan that this person, Narayan-bhatta Goswami, who compiled this beautiful Vraja-mandala Parikrama book, he has a gufa, a famous gufa in Uchagan. We can go there today. A gufa is an underground like cave or cavern under the ground. And today it's kind of guarded by a fence, but you can call the pujari. There's a pujari right deep down in the ground. It goes down, more than 100 feet into the ground. And when you come into this area, it's so beautiful. The walls are always very smoothly washed and pasted and so on. It's very, very clean. And it's always the same temperature like an AC room. And the summers, of course, get extreme and the winters get extremely cold. But the Babas, they would regularly take refuge in these gufas, because we have one of Raghava Pandits in Govardhan that today also, or previously anyway, we could go right down, and there's one in Mahavan of Sanatan Goswami. His Guva also is there, right up. So this is how the Goswamis would contend with the severe weather in Braj. Because, for example, today in Radhakund, it's the coldest place in Govardhan. It's icy cold in winter. And in summertime, you can't even walk on the stones. It'll blister your feet. So it has these extremes of temperature, which are part of the backdrop, we can say, of life in Braj, is the extremity of the temperatures, etc. But today we're in this beautiful environment, millions of beautiful birds and sounds, and especially the sounds of the sweet pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So you can read all of this yourself in my Gurudev's Parikrama book, in the chapter on Kokilavana. So all of this comes under the Kokilavana heading. So Kokilavana ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gold Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj. Sorry, my voice is a bit gone. I had one question. I don't know if anyone else had any questions. But if anyone does, you're welcome to write them in the chat. But my question was, where is the place that the gopis remain after Krishna leaves?
Uddhav Kyari. And that's right next to Nandagaon, which is probably about 4 miles where we've been today. We've come about 4 miles north of Nandagaon to this forest of Kokilavana and Khadiravana. And if we go back to Nandagaon, as we come up to the hill of Nandagaon, on the left-hand side, we walk along for about 1 kilometer, and it's just off to the left, Uddhav Kyari. That's where the gopis remained for 100 years in abject separation from Krishna.
And then Krishna returns, right?
Yes, right at the very end. My Gurudev describes this in his Rathayatra book, when he comes back with Baladev and Subhadra after killing the last demon of Dantavakra. Dantavakra he kills in Mathura. And just before that, he killed, what's his name? What's the brother of Dantavakra? Well, Shishupal was killed before. There's another demon. But Dantavakra is the last demon. Krishna kills him in Mathura, and then he comes back on his chariot, and Radharani is just about to expire. She cannot contain the life air within her body anymore, and Krishna comes at that very moment. Actually, the Sakis, they whisper in Radharani's ear, "He's here, he's come, he's come." And Radhika, she doesn't believe, but then she opens her eyes and she sees him. And then they stay together for some time. It's described as a very brief time in Braj, and then Krishna takes all the Brijvasis back to Goloka Vrindavan, because he also leaves his body in Prabhash externally for the demigods, etc. Lord Brahma, they witness Krishna leaving in that fratricidal battle at Prabhash, where Krishna arranges for all his relatives, the Yadavas, the Vrishnis, the Bhojas, etc., to all annihilate each other with those iron reeds on the curse of the Ravasa. So they kill each other, and then Krishna, he appears to leave because he gets an arrow in his foot from the hunter Jara. But actually Krishna comes back to Vrindavan at that time. That's the final Leela. There was one pastime I didn't mention. I'm just going to say it in 2 seconds, that Shani Dev is very much worshipped in Kokilavana today. Shani Dev is actually representing Saturn in the astrology. And there's a long, very intriguing story of how he manifested, etc. And but I won't tell that now. But Shanidev, as you come into Kokilavana, you see a large murti of Shanidev, and this is the son of the sun god. It's actually the first son. He's older than Jamuna, and he's older than who's the other son? I've forgotten of somebody tell me the other son. Nobody can tell me. Oh, yeah, Yamaraj. Yamaraj, of course, is actually the second son, but the eldest son from Chaya, from his second wife, is Sunnydev, and the Brijbasis, they worship Sunnydev, and that represents Saturn. His planet is Saturn, but that's another whole pastime. But that's the personality who we see when we first come into Kokilavana. But we'll tell that story another time.
Nice.
I can send you all a link, and if you want to share it, this part, it's a fascinating pastime, and if you want to share it, Tarun, you can throw the link into the chat, and I'll just send you the.
And speaking of links, you wanted to share the link of...
Yes, Yuga Acharya.
Yes. Of the details of Srila Gurudev receiving this award, and
Yes.
what he spoke at that time as well.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. His exceptional humility is recorded there very nicely. So I've just sent you that link about Shanidev, if the devotees want to read that. Very sweet, fascinating.
Doesn't seem to be a link, Maharaj.
What is it then?
You look what you've sent me. You've just sent me a link.
Oh, yeah. So I've got to open it. Just let me get back here.
So that's one link for the Yuga Acharya Award.
Let me see if this one works for you. Yes, now it's worked. You can post that in the chat. I'm sharing this link because, as I said, when you first come in to this place, I can remember coming in quite a few times before I actually understood who was Shanidev. I had no idea, coming from the Western countries, who Shanidev is. So these demigods have remarkable pastimes, in fact. But he's right square in the center of this courtyard where we come into. And that's the reason why this particular place has such a nice ashram, because it's been looked after by people who want the mercy of Shanidev, etc. And people give a lot of money and so on. So you can share that link, Tarun?
Yes, I have shared it, Maharaj.
Okay.
Actually, slightly related to what you said. When I went to the British Museum the other week, they had 9 of the planetary demigods from India, like really beautiful. I think maybe they were from Orissa or something.
Right.
Just like very old. I can send you that picture separately. It was quite interesting.
Yeah. Thank you. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Any questions came or not?
Unfortunately not.
How can you really question too much of the Leelas? The Leelas, in a sense, are totally achintya, they're inconceivable. But just to hear and try to gather the mood of the festivity, of the sweetness, the speciality, the separation that's invoked, the union that's finally manifested, and the arrangements that go on, just to connect the divine couple is astonishing. for our contemplation.
It's
It's very purifying.
I mean, I was gonna ask, what's the meaning of the pastime when Srimati Radhika comes with only half of her eyeliner applied, or what are we meant to learn? But I felt like that maybe, I don't know,
because
maybe
Krishna becomes so enthusiastic by that because he immediately appreciates Radharani's greed and her absolute, enthusiasm to meet him. Krishna knows instantly, oh, I've just played my flute, and Radharani, she hasn't even finished her decoration, like in Pranaya Geet, the pastime when Krishna plays his flute and all the gopis, they run to the forest and they have their dress on incorrectly. They're not dressed properly because they were so eager and so enthusiastic. So this eagerness is demonstrated by their lack of finishing their ornamentation, etc. And Krishna himself, in the Pranaya Geet, he also he goes around and he adjusts. It's described that some of them they put their skirt on as their top piece, and everything has become confused in their shringar. And Krishna goes and he carefully adjusts it. But this is like a loud message to Krishna that we are so much anxious to be with you. We don't even, we haven't even taken care to dress. We have no facade. We haven't tried to hide anything. We've just come. This is who we are. Like you sometimes look in the morning, you just come. So this is your enthusiasm to come on the program.
I can't lie, Maharaj, but when I woke up this morning, I was not feeling very good.
Srila Gurudev told me, when he told me that I have to read the books by the Goswamis and our acharyas in that line, he said the main point is to, gather the moods,
Yes.
we may not be able to understand everything, but gather these moods, important parts, because these are, and then later, in the last thing he told me, remember, he said, try to follow and implement the teachings of our previous acharyas, like I have done in my life, and he was saying in his life, that you should do in yours. So I think the message was clear that we should try to, not hear these pastimes, but also pray to have these moods into our hearts, even a glimpse of, just even a tiny drop, because they're so high that even if we can get even a little drop taste of these, like you were just expressing there, the enthusiasm of trying to come to see Krishna, it just, whether the enthusiasm or the love or all these different moods that are being shown are so high that we can get just a drop of them in our hearts would be fortunate.
And we can really catch this, Prabhu, when we're in the particular place, hearing these pastimes. If we're standing there now in dusty Braj with the trees and the buffaloes and the cows and the ladies with the pots on their heads, this whole impression is so much more reinforced. This was the gift of Srila Gurudev. He literally dragged us there so many years, right? He dragged us into Vrindavan just to give us this impression, as you're describing, externally. Because if it starts externally, then it's going to eventually come internally, just like I'm describing every day, the geography of where we're going, etc. If we can, that's something we can access to begin with. And then it's like the structure, and then we come inside, and then we hear the pastime, and then we think about it more deeply and significantly. And there's so much rasa tattva amongst the rasa lila, that we can also dive into at any time with our intellect and so on to try and appreciate the significance of everything. So the whole package, externally and internally, is all the ingredients are there, Prabhu. That's what I'm sharing. Everything is there for us just to have the greed. Again, this greed, like Radharani not putting her anjan on her eye, just to have that in. How can we get that enthusiasm? I ask you that question.
Well, all I can do is continually hear, and then also pray to Gurudev. Srila Gurudev told me personally to pray to Rupa Goswami, and he said he would personally help me to understand these things. So, all we can do is, if we're fortunate enough to have, the association of elevated devotees who have tasting and are tasting that Ras, by their mercy, maybe a small, tiny drop of kripa can come into our heart. That's one. The second point is, for those of us who are very fortunate to actually be in the dust of either Mayapur or Vrindavan and be able to see those things. I know for some of us less fortunate, we've only maybe gone 1-2 parikramas, the entire time that Srila Gurudev's here, just to get out. So we're dependent upon devotees like yourself bringing us those, even though we're thousands of miles away, bringing us to, the Vrindavan Dham and Braj and into the dust of some of the places that we weren't able to visit, to hopefully long after, for when we will get a chance to go to Vrindavan and when we get a chance to the dust of these things into our heart.
If that longing gets sufficient, then the feet must follow. Gurudev used to say, like, if the heart becomes attracted, the feet will automatically follow. So we should take encouragement. And Achyutananda Prabhu should come quickly to Vrindavan, quickly to Navadvip Dham, which was originally where he spent so much time. Spent so much time in India previously in the past. So there's a wealth, of welcome home here for you personally to come again and relish. Of course, every single day we reach a newer appreciation of all of these truths. Everything is moving. Everything is ecstatic, not static. So every single day, our consciousnesses are evolving more and more to have the desire. That's all that's required. I think this Zoom opportunity is just to try to increase this one commodity of greed to come to Vrindavan. Srila Gurudev wanted us to come to Vrindavan, and instead of being in a parikrama where lockdown, whatever, it's difficult this year, and it's his centennial. So how merciful is he to have arranged for us all to meet and to hear these pastimes, in the comfort of our own homes, etc., where we can, if we have the desire, we can take them very seriously. I mean, tomorrow is the last day, but we should not think of it as the last day. We should think of it as the first day. Tomorrow is actually, now I can really begin to put into practice what I've heard for the last month. Where am I going to go for the next 12, 11 months? I should want to come into Braj every day. But what I've mentioned previously is that we should find no gap between Navadvip and Vrindavan. I've tried many times to throw in something about Nityananda, something about Mahaprabhu, etc., because the two are integrally connected. There's no difference. There is no gap, in fact. Like places like Dira Samira, where we celebrated, where Gauridas Pandit was there, Bakrashra Pandit was there, Gopal Guru was there. These personalities from here were there. Unlike Abhiram Das Thakur, Sridham, he has his manifestation here. All these personalities, Baladev, Nityananda himself, Mahaprabhu, Krishna, Radha themselves, they are all manifesting here in Goradam. So Goradam and Vraja-mandala, we should start to connect them much more together. Where's Tarun? Oh, there you are.
Very well.
Tarunji, I finished right on time.
Yes.
I was good. Even Yashoda would have been pleased.
Yeah, but we lost him. He disappeared.
He went to another doctor's appointment, I think he told me. He had to leave.
You're also displaying your mystic potency, because somehow for the last 20 minutes you've been able to speak, but you've been on mute this entire time.
Really?
Somehow the sound is coming through, Maharaj, but it's got the red mic next to your name.
Okay. Ramananda has a nice kirtan for us now.
Sure. You might want to actually somehow mute for the kirtan because there's some background noise coming from you, Maharaj. Okay. But before we go to Ramananda Prabhu's kirtan, I will announce the evening session. Seems to be Avadut Maharaj tonight, although Shripad Avadut Maharaj, although I think the calendar is a bit funny, but maybe it's Avadut Maharaj. And then tomorrow we'll be back at the same time to hear the glorifications of Srila Bhakti Pramoda Puri Gosvami Maharaja, Srila Kashishvara Pandit, and Sri Bhagava Goswami. Is that right, Maharaj? Yes. Okay. So it is Avadut Maharaj. Awesome. And we are also handing over now to Ramananda Prabhu. I need to unmute you. You are unmuted, but I can't hear you. Just as we could hear Maharaj while he was muted, we're now unable to hear you while you're unmuted. Yeah, I see your lips moving, but yeah, no sound.
You should hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. You doing the words for me? Every day I try to check whenever I sing with Maharaji which kirtan fits in with the katha. So today, together with Maharaj, we chose Vraja-mandala Sukhakari. The translation there is different. Oh, you who are the light of the people of Braj, Radhe Sham, Shama Sham. His crown is of peacock feathers. His earrings are shark-shaped, Makara. Around his neck is a forest flower garland, and the bells on his feet resonate rasa. Radhe Sham, Sham Sham. Let me just turn off my work chat because that's probably creating problems. With his beautiful face, eyes like lotus petals, and his crooked and enticing posture, he frolics in forests and hearts, captivating all with his artistry and flute playing. Radhe Shama Shama Sham. In Vrindavan, he tends the cows, absconds with the minds of the cowherd girls, and holds up Shri Govardhan. Radhe Shama Shama Sham. Radha and Krishna now unite in one golden incarnation, preaching the religion of devotional singing, Kirtana Dharma. Radhe Sham Shama Sham. Without you, I have no other. You incarnate in divine name and in divine form. At your feet, rapture is found. This Narayan delights there. Radhe Sham Shama Sham. Shri Radhe Braja Jana Mana Sukhakari Radhe Shama Shama Sham. Shri Radhe Braja Jana Mana Sukhakari Radhe Shama Shama Sham. Ora Mukuta Makara Krita Kundala Gale Vai Jayanti Mala Charanana Pura Rasala Radhe Shama Shama Sham. Shri Radhe Braja Jana Mana Sukhakari Radhe Shama Shama Sham. Sundara Vadana Kamala Dala Lochana Banki Chitavana Hari Mohana Banshi Bihari Radhe Shama Shama Sham. Jai Jai Madhava Madana Murari Radhe Shama Shama Sham. केशव कलिमलहारी राधे श्याम 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 श्री राधे ब्रज जन मन सुखकारी राधे श्याम 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 वृंदावन में धेनु चरावे गोपी जन मनहारी वृंदावन में रास रचावे गोपी जन मनहारी श्री गोवर्धन धारी राधे श्याम 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 श्री राधे ब्रज जन मन सुखकारी राधे श्याम 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 राधा कृष्ण मिलिया बदो गौर रूपे अवतारी कीर्तन धर्म प्रचारी राधे श्याम 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 श्री राधे ब्रज जन मन सुखकारी राधे श्याम 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 तुम बिना मेरे और न कोई नाम रूप अवतारी चरणन में बलिहारी राधे श्याम 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 श्रीमन नारायण बलिहारी राधे श्याम 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 श्रीमन नारायण बलिहारी राधे श्याम 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 ब्रज जन मन सुखकारी राधे श्याम 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 श्री राधे ब्रज जन मन सुखकारी राधे श्याम 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 ओ राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे 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 श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे ब्रज जन मन सुखकारी राधे श्याम 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 राधे ब्रज जन मन सुखकारी राधे श्याम 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 हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे राधा दामोदर दामोदर राधा दामोदर जय सचिनंदन जय गौर हरि सचिनंदन जय गौर हरि जय जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव श्रीला नारायण गोस्वामी जय गुरुदेव जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे
Shah. Yes. Shah. Beautiful, Ramananda.
Jai. Pancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhaeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.